Hello and welcome to 7 Days of Science. In the headlines this week, we've got the discovery of a new living pangolin species, one of the largest spider fossils to ever be found, the oldest structural use of wood by hominins, and much more. Starting off the news this week, some fantastic news from NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission to bring back samples from the asteroid Bennu. This mission launched back in 2016, and we have followed its journey to Bennu, which it arrived at in 2018, all the way back home to Earth. It was in the later part of 2020 when the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft completed its touch-and-go maneuver to collect dust and pebbles from the asteroid's surface. This was one of the most tense moments of the mission, and we were pleased to hear of its success, despite some initial worries. This week, the return capsule dropped off the sample at Earth, where it will now be studied by scientists hoping to further understand planet formation and, hopefully, the origin of organics, water, and life on Earth. Having yet more asteroid samples will also help us learn about asteroids themselves, and the possible dangers they may pose. The spacecraft that dropped off the asteroid samples hasn't ended its mission though. It will continue to fly through space in search of more knowledge about asteroids. It's currently heading to rendezvous with the asteroid Apophis, which is due to come within 20,000 miles of Earth near the closing of the decade. It will be after this flyby that the spacecraft will come into orbit of Apophis, hopefully allowing us to take advantage of a rare opportunity to study the effects the close flyby had on this massive space rock. Like the incredibly interesting and unique knowledge that previous asteroid samples are proving to be giving us, we very much look forward to seeing what the samples from Bennu are able to teach us about the solar system and our origins. Also in the news this week is the incredible discovery of a new living pangolin species. Before this publication, there were 8 recognized living species of these amazing mammals, 4 in Africa and 4 in Asia. And this new species is now the 5th one known from Asia, naming it Manis mysteria. It is only known from confiscated scales that were being illegally trafficked in Hong Kong and Yunnan province. And by comparing the genomes of these scales, as well as their anatomy, to all other pangolin species, the researchers were able to determine that this was a completely distinct lineage, likely separating from other Asian pangolins more than 5 million years ago. However, very sadly, the genome of Manis mysteria shows that their population has been in decline, likely due to climate change and the illegal trade of pangolin scales. An incredible discovery that not only expands our knowledge of these fantastic animals, but also shows how important it is to conserve them and their genetic diversity. Up next in the news, an update on Tokitei the orca. Many people, including the Lumi Nation, had been campaigning for years for the release of Tokitei, who had been in captivity for over 50 years. It was looking as though her release was going to become a reality when she suddenly became ill and died on August the 18th at Miami Seaquarium. From here, her body was taken to the University of Georgia in Athens, near Atlanta, where a necropsy was performed, the results of which have not yet been released. Tokitei's remains were cremated, and on the 20th of September she was flown to Bellingham International Airport, accompanied by Raynor Morris, a Lumi elder. Toki's ashes were placed in a white wooden cedar box, which was surrounded by a shroud with her traditional name on it. Her ashes were returned to her home waters of the Salish Sea on Saturday the 23rd by the Lumi tribe. The tribe members were aboard a Lumi police boat and the ceremony was private. Toki's companion, a Pacific white-sided dolphin, was successfully moved on Sunday night from his lonely tank to SeaWorld of Antonia. Here he will be reunited with 2 of his offspring, a former companion, and 3 other members of his species. We wish him well in his new surroundings and hope that Toki is now happily swimming with her family in her home waters, if not physically then in spirit. Next, there's also been a study that has managed to extract and sequence RNA from an extinct species, the thylacine or Tasmanian tiger. Using a desiccated specimen preserved in Stockholm that's about 130 years old, researchers were able to sequence the transcriptome of muscle and skin tissues, an important step in potentially resurrecting the species one day, and also demonstrating the importance of museum collections. A lot of new genetic information has been discovered due to this research, and they were even able to detect traces of RNA viruses, suggesting that in future they might also be able to sequence the evolutionary precursors of RNA virus genomes that may be found in preserved skins of host organisms, such as bats. First up in the paleontology news this week, we have a new dinosaur. Named Jiangxi Titan ganjuensis, I think, it dates to the very end of the Cretaceous period and was found in southern China. It's a new kind of titanosaur, a giant sauropod dinosaur, and the material comprises 7 vertebrae all in articulation, 2 articulated ribs from the neck vertebrae, and 3 articulated dorsal ribs. Since sauropod vertebrae are so complex and generally very diagnostic, it's recognized as a new species within the derived titanosaur grouping Loganconsoria. I never know how you say that, which also contains famous species such as the South American Argentinosaurus and Patagotitan. This is quite interesting as Ganansaurus, from the same formation, is placed as a much more basal titanosaur, indicating that this formation in China was home to both early and late diverging titanosaurs that coexisted. Also this week, there's been the first scientific paper published about the incredible Rutland sea dragon, the giant ichthyosaur excavated in the UK that was announced back in January of 2022. The paper details the process and methods that were used to dig out the enormous skeleton, as well as how the bones were 3D scanned in situ, and also discusses some of the preliminary results of the skeleton's study. This specimen may actually be the first example of an ichthyosaur called Temnodontosaurus trigonodon to be found in the UK, as this particular species was mainly known from deposits in Germany until now. The age of the skeleton is also discussed, based on the initial investigation of the ammonite and other invertebrate fauna found alongside the bones. Additionally, the paper goes over the media impact of the discovery, providing some interesting data on how the story was covered in various countries, and how science communication can be used to inform the public about paleontological discoveries such as these. Also in the recent paleontology news, the second largest spider fossil ever found has been described. It's been named as a new genus and species, Megamonodontium McCluskii, and of course it comes from Australia. It lived during the Miocene epoch, between 11 and 16 million years ago, and appears to be closely related to a still living genus of trapdoor spider, Monodontium. The Megamonodontium fossil is preserved as a mostly complete part and counterpart fossil, and its body measures 23.3 millimeters, or just less than an inch, which might not sound enormous, but it's actually around 5 times larger than the living Monodontium. So a pretty spectacular fossil find. Another recent paleontological discovery has been made in Australia too, this time a crocodilian also from the Miocene. Named as the new species Baru elunbinia, it's the youngest member of the Baru genus and is a kind of Minkowskian crocodilian. The fossil material known for this species comprises a very nice almost complete skull, as well as some disarticulated skull material and possible bones from the body. The paper also proposes that a notable turnover of crocodilian assemblages between the Miocene and the following Pliocene could be explained by a period of severe aridity, causing the Baru genus as well as others to die out and be replaced by new species. In other croc news, a new species of Barusuchid crocodiliform from the late Cretaceous of Brazil has also been described, and given the very cool name Apharasuchus kaiju. Known from a few pieces of the skull and jaws, this species helps to show that Barusuchia actually had a much broader and longer distribution than had previously been realized, as 2 other species, one from Europe and one from Madagascar, were also found to be members of this lineage thanks to the analysis performed in this paper. And finally for the news this week, an astonishing new study has been published reporting on the discovery of the possible earliest structural use of wood by hominins, dating to at least 476,000 years ago. These structures, found at a site called Kalambo Falls in Zambia, preserve 2 logs that interlock together and are joined by an intentionally cut notch in the top one. Surface modifications are present across the logs that appear to have been formed from scraping by tools, and so it's clear that these are not just bits of wood that floated together. The function of the structure is unclear and cannot be determined with certainty, but the authors hypothesized that perhaps it was part of a walkway, a platform raised above the wet environment of Kalambo, or perhaps even part of a habitation structure. Younger wooden tools were also recovered from another period of inhabitation at the site, dating to between 390,000 and 324,000 years ago, and include a digging stick, a wedge structure, a cut log, and a branch with a notch. The research explains that ancient wooden structures very rarely preserve for such lengths of time, as the organic matter is much less resilient than stone or mineralized bone. but thanks to the waterlogged conditions of the Kalambo site, the lack of oxygen slowed down the decay of these structures. Since there are also even older wooden artifacts known, such as a 780,000-year-old fragment of polished plank from Israel, it seems clear that wooden tools and structures were being utilized in many different ways by these ancient hominins, but because of how rarely they are preserved, the full extent of their uses have gone underappreciated. So some absolutely amazing discoveries this week, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about everything that's happened in these last 7 days of science, and I also just wanted to thank everyone who has joined the channel and become a member already. I hope you've enjoyed the first behind the scenes video we have available, and please do consider becoming a member if you would like to support the channel and to get access to some cool behind the scenes footage and members only live streams, plus a lot more. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on Sunday.